Hi, this is a response to your part-time HTML tutor needed in Midtown. I would like to teach you how to go to Fierce Market's ad guide email blasts and really break down and understand what you need for what you're doing. So if we go here, you can see the required content you need. These are simple things to go over. 70 characters or less for your subject matter. And for people, a text-only version for people who can't view HTML, older PDAs, etc., smaller systems, not T9 phones, but something smaller. And the best practices for email design. All of these things that you see on top, background images do not render many email clients, etc., etc., etc. This is something important for you to look at because you want to break Photoshop things up and make a layout. That's not something you're supposed to be doing with this. It's actually telling you not to break up Photoshop documents and do that. But you can have images, but the whole background image with some text on top, you might actually have to turn that into a full image itself, but then that makes it less dynamic. So let's go down here and look at one of the examples, sample 1. Inside of this sample HTML, you see an image here, a nice image up top, and that's not text, that's all one image. That's what I'm speaking of. But to have a background down here wouldn't be such a great idea for what the criteria is. So if we look at the background element, and I move this over a little bit, let's take a look at this in 3D. You can see that it's very, very highly stacked, or there's a lot of nesting going on. If you understand HTML to a point, you can see that could be confusing after a while if you look on the right. But when you have things like Firefox or some other editing program like Dreamweaver, it can help you out a lot to understand where your tables are and your sections. Now let's look at the source code itself. I'm going to go back into the main page by reloading, right-clicking and viewing the page source itself. Now that I'm in the page source itself, you can see that there's hypertext references and an image source, but it's a full-length image source. It's not relative, it's an absolute address. This is important because whether it's Fierce Markets or it's your server, you really need to have an absolute address or it gets lost in the email. Many email programs just throw out relative addresses. Also, font face. Simple serif font faces, that's what these are, Arial and Helvetica. The size, the color, etc. All these things should be inline. The way the tables work, whether or not something's bold or not, or you have strong, you can go back and each part will actually show you how to do that. So let's look at the second HTML example. And then that's much more simplified. So if you look at the page source, you'll see that that's much easier to understand. But breaking down each segment will probably take, a few hours to understand it and maybe a few hours to practice. But you'll definitely have something under your belt by the end of the day so you can get some email blasts out there professionally and not have to hire other people to do your work. Now, on my website, if you look here, my design, I have CMS, SEO, gallery, etc. If you look at my source itself, you'll notice that I have a few CSS pages, but not many. Not much going on. And I'm very clean and concise the way I design. That'll be the same way for email blast. But let's go here to an email blast example that I made. Now, if I open this up, you can inspect the element, and we can look at it in 3D for a second. If you'll notice, my stacking is much shorter and easier to understand. That won't be the same for every design, but for what I'm doing for this client, it worked wonderfully. And here is the source code for that page itself. So I'll let that open up, go to the source, and you can see the simplicity and the organization of my outline where I tab everything out nice and cleanly for the next person to come by and to understand what's going on. So I would really hope to work with you, and I'd like it if you used me for your tutor. Thank you very much and have a good day.